Good morning. Welcome to Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whoever you are and wherever you come from, for this hour, we here are one gathered congregation and all are welcome. We are delighted to have our beloved choir with us today to sing our call to worship, No Complaints Whatsoever.
I got no complaints whatsoever. I got no complaints whatsoever. I got no complaints whatsoever. And a new day is dawning in my soul. I got no complaints whatsoever.
wow. To quote one of my favorite children's books, wow, that's just about all we can say. Wow. My name is Liz Roberts, and I use she, her pronouns. I have short, dark hair, wear glasses, and I'm in my 50s. I'm a retired school librarian currently working in my dream job at my beloved public library. Maybe yours too. My family and I have been attending KUUF for over 25 years. This is the place that we have turned to in times of joy and in times of sorrow. It is truly my spiritual home, and I am 100% pleased to worship with you on this beautiful post-snowy Sunday morning. Our guest speaker this morning is Joseph Bednarik, a frequent speaker here at KUUF, and this was news to me, recently retired from co-publishing Copper Canyon Press in Port Townsend, Washington. Welcome back, Joseph. If you're here visiting us this morning, please participate as you feel comfortable. If you're here in person, we have fidget toys, we have a rocking chair if you need to wiggle, and if you have sensory needs, and we have assistive listening devices available. If you need one of our ushers can help you with that. You're also invited to stay after today's service to meet people during our coffee hour. Now, many members of our congregation attend online, and if you are visiting online, we're glad you are here this morning, and we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. More announcements about the activities and goings-on here at Kitsap UU Fellowship are available in our weekly email newsletter, The Candle. You can sign up for this on our website or in the foyer at the welcome table. Would you please take a moment to silence any of your electronic devices that you don't need to be monitoring in the next hour? And please join me now and let's take a few centering breaths. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for our future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. Now, some of you already know February here at KUUF is Stewardship Month, and today we have a video from Erin Haver, who is a member of our stewardship campaign, and it will play on our screens.
I wanted to push it.
Sorry. Good morning and happy Sunday. My name is Erin and I use she, her pronouns. I have brown hair that goes a little bit past my shoulder and I'm wearing a tan sweater this morning. And what are you wearing? Who are you and what are you wearing?
I'm Lucy and I'm wearing shiny pink kitty ears, sunglasses, pink aurora dress,
And what's on your ears?
earrings, and I have a regular too.
She does have a wiggly too.
I use she, her pronoun.
She does. We wanted to take a moment this morning to welcome you to the 2025 Stewardship Campaign. Every February, as many of you are aware, the Stewardship Committee embarks on a journey to help bring in funds for the upcoming fiscal year. And also, many of you are aware that the majority of KUUF's operating budget comes from the yearly pledges. And so we wanted to take a moment, the Stewardship Committee, including myself, Eric Harold, and Beth Wilson, wanted to take a minute, and Lucy. Lucy is an honorary member, to take a moment and thank you so much in advance for all of your generous donations this year. We have a big goal this year. It's $233,000, but as Beth stated, we met our goal last year, and if you meet your goal, it's too low. So we did do the math. It's only a slight increase in pledges from last year, and we think it's totally doable. You should have received your pledging packet in the mail, and if you haven't, you'll be receiving it in a few days. But I also wanted to take a moment to thank Tanisha so much for getting everything ready for us for those packets. When we arrived to stuff the envelopes, everything was ready to go. She had spent a significant amount of time doing that for us, and she also popped them in the mail. So huge shout out to Tanisha. When you read your letter, you'll see that this year's theme is Realize Your Value. When you do a quick Google search of Realize Your Value, the first thing that pops up, or at least it did for me in my algorithm, when you search Realize Your Value, is realizing your worth or self-worth is the process of recognizing that you are worthy of love, happiness, and belonging. It involves understanding the accepting of, it involves understanding and accepting yourself and believing that your value comes from within, which I think perfectly summarizes what KUUF is all about. When you walk through those doors, we hope that you feel love and that you feel belonged. And after each service, we hope that you have at least a slightly greater sense of happiness and joy. And now more than ever, people are going to need a place to feel loved and that they belong. Throughout the month, you will have the opportunity to hear from either another member of the stewardship committee, such as myself, or someone who's speaking on behalf of the stewardship committee. Next week it's Bonner. Then we're going to have Brian and Liz join us, and then Eric is going to wrap things up for Brian and Liz. Yep. Eric is going to wrap things up for us. So they're going to discuss what values this fellowship has imparted upon their lives and how they've realized their own value by attending and participating in all that KUF has to offer. So how can you help us reach this really big goal? You can pledge time or money, or you can pledge both. I'm sure there are always committees that are out there who would love to have you. Some of which are noted on the back of your letter this year. They list the committees out for you, and they also list accomplishments that the committees were able to realize based upon last year's pledges, and also goals that they would like to accomplish this upcoming year with all of the pledges, both time and money. So let's face it, getting down to the nitty-gritty, money is a subject that nobody really enjoys talking about. It's somewhat touchy, but sometimes it's a necessary subject. So like I previously stated, the majority of KUUF's operating budget is from your pledges. So all contributions are welcome, no matter how big or small. If you can make a large contribution, that is wonderful. We always accept those, but what maybe isn't talked about enough is the fact that you might feel embarrassed or shy about pledging if you can't make a large contribution. You might feel that a small contribution wouldn't make a difference at all. But as a little known artist named Vincent van Gogh stated, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. So you can rest assured that all pledges are private. The stewardship committee has no idea what individuals pledge, just the combined totals of all of those pledges. So whether your weekly pledge is $5 or $500, it's a valuable part of what keeps KUF going each year. And if $5 is too much for you and $1 is what you can do each week, that's absolutely fine as well. Nothing is too big or too small. Everything is welcome. When you've completed your form, you can either mail it in or simply put it in the pledge box located in the foyer. And again, no one sees those pledge forms besides Tanisha, and everything is completely confidential. I love you. So like I said, whatever fits in your weekly budget is welcome. Do not feel obligated to make a huge donation if you cannot afford it. And once again, on behalf of the Stewardship Committee, we want to thank you, and we look forward to a successful stewardship campaign. Do you want to say thank you and goodbye?
Bye. Thank you.
Do you want to let everybody see your face? It's a beautiful face. Okay, and do you want to push the red button? And everybody can see your loose tooth. Do you want to push the red button, baby?
I'm going to be working on my statement. See if I can find some pink sparkly sunglasses. The opening words this morning are from singer-songwriter Phil Oakes. In such ugly times, the only true protest is beauty. We welcome Eric Howlett to come up and light our chalice. Eric serves on the Safe Congregation Committee, which is currently in need of volunteers. We welcome Eric Howlett to come and light our chalice. He serves on the Safe Congregation Committee, which is responsible for making our KUUF community as safe as possible in all areas. These include emergency management like fire and earthquakes, playground and child safety, responding to medical emergencies, financial security, among others. Please see Eric after the service if you're interested in helping the Safe Congregation Committee. And you can also contact the committee at their email, which is safety@kuuf.org. Join me now in lighting our chalice. If you have your own chalice or candle at home, please light it now. We light the chalice this morning with words from French philosopher, mystic, and social activist Simone Weil. Love is not consolation, it is light. Please join me now in our spoken affirmation. The words will appear on the screen. We gather as a caring community, seeking life's deeper meanings. We value diversity and affirm the worth of all living things. To speak truth in love, to act for justice, to grow in spirit, and to care for the earth. We celebrate with open hearts and minds the creative power that sustains and transforms us. The tune for our next hymn, Oh, the Beauty in a Life, is a traditional Visayan or Filipino folk tune, and the words for it were written by Bishop Tolerable, the founder of the first Universalist church in the Philippines, which became the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Philippines. Please rise in body or spirit to join in singing hymn number 182, Oh, the Beauty in a Life. I have a wisdom tale for you this morning. This is called Milk and Sugar, and it's adapted from a book called Ancient Stories for Modern Times, 50 Short Wisdom Tales for All by Faye Mogensen. So you may already know we're in the second week of February, the second Sunday, and we're exploring the practice of inclusion this month. Today, we're going to explore the theme through the lens of including stories. You see, oftentimes, we're only told or hear parts of a story or one side of a story. That doesn't mean that there aren't other sides or other stories that should be left out. In fact, leaving out stories has a way of harming all of us. So with that in mind, I'm going to share a special wisdom tale called Milk and Sugar. It happens to be a Parsi folk tale. Long, long ago, back in the 8th to 10th century, some Persians from what is today known as Iraq, Iran, and other countries fled their homeland during a time of war, and they set out to save themselves and their religious faith. They practiced the religion of Zoroastrianism. Now, they landed in Sanjan, a port in the Indian state of Gujarat. The king there, Jadhav Rana, was the ruler of the land, and he was a good one at that. But he knew his land was already full, and he really couldn't let them enter. The king and his court went to meet the Persians when they landed, but found that they didn't speak the same language. So, in order to welcome the strangers and try to communicate that the land was already full of people, in fact, it was full to the brim, the king sent them a full glass of milk. The king pointed to it as a way of saying that the land was full and couldn't accommodate the strangers. Now, the priests in the group of people that had fled, the Zoroastrian priests, immediately understood this message and metaphor. And since they were peace-loving religious people, they wanted to send back a message that they would make the land and community richer and more prosperous through their knowledge and hard work and their values. So into that glass of milk, and this is where you've got to use your brain. You've got that, they stirred some sugar. And their message was clear. Like stirring sugar into milk, our presence in this country will sweeten your lives. The king, Jadhav Rana, was really impressed with this gesture, and he and his court decided to grant them asylum and welcome them with gifts and help them settle into this new land in India. These Parsis thus settled and assimilated. They blended in India like sugar in the milk. You know, in our world today, even right now on Sunday, February 9th, we hear that the story of refugees and immigrants should be turned away and left out. What I took away from this story and what I really love about it is that it reminds us what happens when we include the other side. The story lifts up how including a refugee population and welcoming them can be a gift to everyone and can, in fact, make a community stronger. So in the weeks and days ahead, may all of us, kids and adults alike, try to hold on to this story as a reminder to be inclusive of the stories that get left out and the lessons they have to offer us. Would you please join me in body or spirit to join in singing the children up to their class? The words for "May You Go with Joy" will appear on the screens. is a lot of joy. I love it. And just by a side note, this story was chosen long ago, just so you know. It was planned in the fall. So funny how those things work out. As a religious community together, we can do the work of many. By sharing in the sacred act of giving, we transform gratitude into generosity towards our mission. One way that our mission inspires us to act on our shared UU values is to share our weekly offering with a local nonprofit agency providing services within our larger community. Local. Our charitable giving recipient for the month of February is our partner Unitarian Church in Rechnid, Romania. But I'm reading a book about the universe right now, so that is super local. And at that church that we've partnered with for years now, our funds will be used to enrich the lives of the children that attend that church and live in that town. In a moment, our ushers will be moving among us with baskets to collect the offering. If this is your first time at KUUF, your presence is your gift. Instructions on other ways to make your gift will be on screen. Let there be an offering to strengthen and sustain our beloved community while we enjoy a gift of music from our choir. Thank you so much, choir. Now is the time for our joys and sorrows. When shared together, our joys are amplified and our sorrows lessened. Hilda and Roger, Burlingett share, our concern is for our son Stephen and his colleagues at USAID as they experience post-closures and layoffs. USAID saves lives around the world. Vulnerable populations are already being affected. I have a joy today. My joy is that Random Acts of Kindness Week, no joke, starts today, February 9th. I encourage you, in fact, I challenge you, commit one or more random act of kindness each day this week. Catherine Woods shares a joy that it is her mom's, Ginny Sujimoto's, 68th birthday. Happy birthday! Rowan shares a sorrow for the many idealists who work at USAID and elsewhere who are finding their work and livelihoods in jeopardy due to the political retribution of funding cuts. Lane Daniel shares a joy for the passion, expertise, and yes, joy of all the high school and middle school jazz bands that performed at the first Quincy Square Jazz Fest. They are an inspiration. My husband Brian and I have a joy and a concern we'd like to share with you this morning. Our joy is watching our son attempt independent living. Our concern is watching our son attempt independent living. And I'm okay about it now. I was crying about it earlier. Guy Frindell shares, my joy. We are flying to California this week to witness my daughter accepting a prestigious Professor of the Year award at the community college where she teaches. That's awesome. The road is indeed winding, is it not? Look at that. And we light one final candle for those joys and sorrows that are still too tender to share. Will you please join me now in a moment of prayer or intention? Spirit of life, you who animate the universe, help us to remember the gift that is a human life. With our consciousness and senses, we can touch, taste, see, and feel so much that is good and alluring and enticing. Spirit of life, some of us here today may be thinking of concerns more than joys, of loss rather than enjoyment. For those of us, we ask for healing and restoration. To those of us, we pledge our aid. Just as cares arise, so shall they pass. Just as grief pains, new joy beckons. Spirit of life, may we remember that life is a dance, and may we ensure that we move to the rhythm divine. So may it be. Amen. Please remain seated as we sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. It's found in our gray hymnal. The words will appear on your screen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joseph. I am a tall male, goes by he, him pronouns. My hair is brown if it's there and short. I wear glasses and I'm in a dark gray coat. I also want to just share the first part of this service, like a lot of times that happen in this sanctuary, is just cracking my heart wide open. Choir, wow, you're nailing it this morning. I mean, just really. And also with that exposed heart or cracking heart, I also want to say, I have a friend who every time they fly, even though they've flown 10 million times and always safely, they surround themselves in white light. We're going to be having a little bumpy ride here for the next 20-25 minutes. I would suggest that you pack your heart in some nice soft material, surround yourself with white light, and know that we will land safely. Also, I just want to say hymn number 182, the first time I've ever sung that in a sanctuary. Wow. Oh, the beauty in a life. I'm going to bring that one forward again. The reading this morning is by one of the poets whose work is very sacred to me, a man named Jim Harrison, a person who loved life, was also a political progressive, not afraid to stare hard at the hard parts of history and find poetry there. This is called The Brand New Statue of Liberty. And there's a couple of names at the beginning of the poem, which are Brazilian religious figures. I was commissioned in a dream by Imanja, also the Black Pope of Brazil, Tancred, to design a 7-tiered necklace of 7,000 skulls for the Statue of Liberty. Of course, from a distance, they'll look like pearls, but in November, when the strongest winds blow, the skulls will rattle wildly, bone against metal, a crack and shatter of bone against metal, the true sound of history, this metal striking bone. I'm not going to get heavy-handed. A job is a job, and I've leased a football field for the summer, gathered a group of ladies who are art lovers, leased in advance a Bull Sikorsky freight helicopter to drop on the necklace. Funding comes from Ford Foundation, Rockefeller, the NEA. There is one Jewish skull from Atlanta, 2 from Mississippi, but this is basically an indigenous cast, except skulls from tribes of blacks who got a free ride over from Africa, representative skulls from all the Indian tribes, an assortment of grizzly, wolf, coyote, and buffalo skulls. But what beauty! When the morning summer sun glances off these bony pates, and her great iron lips quivering in a smile, almost a smirk, so that she'll drop the torch to fondle the jewels. Please join now in some heart-packing moments of silence.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Bones Barone, who's going to do the reading of Martin Luther King in this. There are pieces of a Martin Luther King speech throughout this song. So Bones. And
I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
free at last, we should be free at last, not prisoners of a past divided by races. Well, it's kind of strange, though we're all about the same, somehow these lines remain. We stay in our places. And what does the color of the skin have to do with the person within? Does it really matter? Does it really matter? Does it really matter? Well, I really don't know, but when you take it past the color zone and you get right down to the bone, tell me, does it really matter? Does it matter at all? Rich or poor, there's a destiny in store. We will share forevermore. No one's excluded. And if one day they blow this world of ours away, well, it makes no difference how you pray, 'cause we're all included. And when a hungry baby cries, can you tell me what color are the tears in his eyes? Does it really matter? Does it really matter? Does it really matter? Well, I really don't know, but when you take it past the color zone and you get right down to the bone, tell me, does it really matter? Does it matter at all? Well, the vision is living on. Life's a road we travel on, judging not by the color of the skin. Oh, no, it's the content of the man, the character that stands shining from within. Does it matter? Does it really matter? Does it really matter? Well, I really don't know, but when you take it past the color zone and you get right down to the bone, tell me, does it really matter? Does it matter at all?
I have a dream today that the brotherhood of man will become a reality. And this day, I have a dream.
Does it really matter?
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Wow. Thank you. The title of this message this Sunday morning is called, Is Tolerance Tolerable? And let your imagination run wild as to why this famous Holocaust poem came into my field of awareness more than a few times since our newly elected president chose not to put his hand on the Bible while taking the oath of office. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Now, that piece was written by Pastor Martin Niemöller, who was a World War I German U-boat commander and a Nazi-supporting anti-Semite, who was eventually imprisoned in a concentration camp for speaking out against Nazi control of churches. And for those in this sanctuary who voted for our current president and supports his administration's recent actions, considered by millions of citizens to be anti-democratic, against the Constitution, racist, vindictive, petty, and mean-spirited, please know that I am not equating the past few weeks with the horrors of the Holocaust. But we are pointing out that federal actions taken recently have muted the consequences of political violence with the pardon of all the January 6th rioters, targeted trans people, attempted to end the constitutionally enshrined birthright citizenship, and with the cancellation of USAID, literally taking food and medicine away from some of the world's poorest people. And to add racist insult to actual injury, publicly blaming horrific wildfires in Los Angeles and a deadly air crash over Washington, D.C. on, wait for it, DEI, an acronym for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, aside from being racist and distasteful, please know that it is a direct assault on Unitarian Universalism, as the words diversity, diverse, equity, and inclusion are at the very heart of our stated values and covenants. Now, for those reasons, and likely others, you probably occupy an emotional space somewhere between unsettled and furious. As such, please know that this, as I've mentioned before, is that kind of sermon where you need to surround yourself in white light. And also, this is far from a tidy package. And to follow one poem with another as a callback to Nazis and fascists and to the power of fire and the mystery of the religion or mystery of religious faith, here's a short poem by W.S. Merwin entitled Ash. Piece of context. This poem was inspired when W.S. Merwin visited a site in the forests of Finland where Nazis had burned down a village church during World War II. Ash by W.S. Merwin. The church in the forest was built of wood. The faithful carved their names by the doors. Same names as ours. Soldiers burned it down. The next church, where the first had stood, was built of wood with charcoal floors. Names were written in black by the doors, same names as ours. Soldiers burned it down. We have a church where the others stood. It's made of ash. No roof. No doors. Nothing on earth says it's ours. Love your enemies. Those 3 red letter words were in the holy book that burned and became ash when that village church burned down the first time, then burned down the second time, then burned down the third time. Those 3 words, originally said in Aramaic to a small group of people, they are amongst the most passed down, shared, and translated words in the history of humanity, appearing in over 250 different languages, different translations of the Bible, uttered on every continent, spanning the last 2,000 years. Whether you are Christian, or Jewish, or Buddhist, or Muslim, a Hindu, a Rastafarian, a Pastafarian, a Quaker, a Shaker, an atheist with a sharply pointed capital A, or an agnostic with one of those shoulder-shrugging small a's, whether you are a Unitarian or a Universalist or some combination of a Universalist Unitarian, you all know the words. Love your enemies. It is the fundamental teaching of the Christian faith. It is the marquee and memorable and confounding aphorism, the heart of an entire religious tradition for which the founder died a horrific death, 3 words that could easily fit on a bumper sticker, that could be affixed to a skateboard or a freight train, a U-boat or a SpaceX rocket. Love your enemies. Now, in a world with so much bloody and unimaginable conflict, with political leaders acting so grotesquely, what on earth can this possibly mean? And historically speaking, why are Christians so objectively bad at loving their enemies? Now, that directive, love your enemies, seems like the proper place to start and end a sermon on tolerance, and let the record show that the holy phrase is not tolerate your enemies, it's love your enemies. And so before we move 1 second further, and to lighten the mood just a little bit, here's a very fun joke, easy to remember. And as one of your acts of kindness, perhaps lay this on someone that you don't know at the grocery store. What's not in the Bible? White people. Years ago, when I first began attending Unitarian Universalist services, I noted that the word tolerance was used during worship 2 weeks in a row. Now, I like the word well enough, but my basic gut level understanding of the word was, live and let live. And the first usage of that word, tolerance, came in that famous passage from the Dalai Lama, which was quoted from the pulpit. In English, these words, kindness is my true religion. No matter whether you are learned or not, whether you believe in the next life or not, whether you believe in God or Buddha or some other religion or not, in day-to-day life, you must be a kind person. Love, compassion, and tolerance are necessities, not luxuries. And he continues, every major religion has similar ideas of love, the same goal of benefiting humanity through spiritual practice, and the same effect of making its followers into better human beings. All religions teach moral precepts for perfecting the functions of mind and body and speech. All teach us not to lie or to steal or to take others' lives. All religions, still the Dalai Lama, all religions can learn from one another. Their ultimate goal is to produce better human beings who will be more tolerant, more compassionate, and less selfish. Repeat. More tolerant, more compassionate, and less selfish. And then that second week, the minister who was delivering the message that morning held up a little red wallet card and shared her responses to the questions, what do Unitarian Universalists believe? And the congregation heard these words, Quote, "We believe in the toleration of religious ideas. All religions, in every age and culture, possess not only intrinsic merit, but also potential value for those who have learned the art of listening." I love that phrase, learn the art of listening. And while I was nodding my head in general agreement at those uses of the word tolerance, I was also at that time really chewing on, and trying to digest a very hard and a very damning sentence in a book called The End of Faith, which was written by a very devout atheist named Sam Harris. Quote, "Religious tolerance is one of the principal forces driving us toward the abyss." Now, perhaps that sentiment could be expanded by adding also political tolerance. Here's a larger context within which those words appear. Again, the greatest problem confronting civilization is not merely religious extremism, but rather it is the larger set of cultural and intellectual accommodations we have made to faith itself. Religious moderates are, in large part, responsible for the religious conflicts in our world because their beliefs provide the context in which scriptural literalism, meaning everything that you read in the Holy Book is literally true, and religious violence can never be adequately opposed. Close quote. Now, this seemed quite at odds with what the Dalai Lama was saying and what that little wallet card on UUism was saying. And how does one reconcile the toleration of religious ideas with those religious ideas that make no rational sense, especially when violence is justified by those religious ideas? And we could, if we wanted to, swap out political ideas. Again, Harris, quote, "The basic fact is that for our beliefs to be truly representative of the world, they must stand in right relationship to the world," close quote. And thus the question, how can we tolerate religious beliefs that have no credible evidence, no possibility of being true, such as life after death or a virgin birth? Now, one possibility, and it's one that I use with frequency, is to allow some slack in the line and to celebrate metaphorical understanding, though I doubt that would satisfy those who adhere to scriptural literalism. Hey, buddy, Jesus did walk on water, and don't tell me your science suggests otherwise. While also reminding ourselves that millions and millions and millions of people believe that the Quran is straight dictation to the Prophet Muhammad and don't even think about thinking otherwise. Full stop. So tolerance, tolerance, tolerance. The American notion of religious tolerance finds some of its deepest meanings in the historical reality that many of the first people who landed on the Atlantic coast some 500 years ago were escaping religious persecution. They justifiably grew weary of watching their fellow heretics being burned at the stake, so they became immigrants to a new homeland rather than profess religious beliefs that did not ring true to their understanding of the holy texts. So one of the deepest taproots and motivating forces of the founding of this country was a longing by religious exiles to find some place where they could freely practice their religion, all the while, of course, stealing the land and slaughtering the people who lived and thrived on that land for millennia. Those darker-skinned people, they weren't even honored with the label heretic. Those people, if actually that's what they were dismissed and dishumanized as savages. Love your enemies. Being a word person, I poked around the word tolerance, and I would love to share with you some of my findings. The roots of tolerance come from medieval toxicology or pharmacology, marking how much poison a body could, quote unquote, tolerate before it could succumb to death. Poison. Now, even the meanings in a modern Webster's dictionary, they are not rocking my socks. Consider the primary definition: capacity to endure pain or hardship. Consider the second definition: the ability to endure the effects of a drug or a food or of a physiological insult without exhibiting the usual unfavorable effects. Number 3, and most relevant to our discussion here this morning, sympathy or indulgence for beliefs or practices differing from or conflicting with one's own, the act of allowing something. Did you catch that? The act of allowing something. You act to allow. Tolerance is not passive. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is a value that I embrace: to withstand poison, to indulge, to endure hardship, to allow. Now, I instinctively recoil from the opposite, from intolerance. That word strikes me as poisonous, in the same family as fundamentalism, extremism, and fanaticism. But let's put a pin in that for now, and let me share a brief story about a friend who owns a used bookstore. I asked him for his thoughts on the subject of tolerance, and I do this with some frequency when I'm thinking or feeling and kind of thrashing my way into a Sunday morning talk. I'm thinking about these things. I'll often ask my friends, or pretty much anyone who's within earshot, what they think and what they feel. Beware, you are now forewarned. In this instance, my friend's immediate response was to share this little small town retail drama. Last year, a woman came into the bookstore and became incredibly agitated when she saw a book by Noam Chomsky faced out on the sales table. And the book was titled On Palestine, the cost of $7.95. How can you display and sell such an anti-Israel book? She said, with detectable ire in her voice. How can you? My friend, as he says, was tempted to give this customer, or non-customer, as the case may be, a short tour of the store and show her any number of books that would upset or infuriate someone, including a used hardback of Karl Marx's Das Kapital, an art book complete with fold-outs showing full-color images of pinup girls, all classically beautiful, slender white women proudly painted on the fuselages of World War II bombers. A waterproof manual about how to butcher a deer with a very straightforward title, From the Kill to the Package, and several Dr. Seuss titles that have been put out of print by his publisher for racist and insensitive imagery. Now, each and every book mentioned is distasteful, if not downright intolerable, by someone. It is very easy to become offended in a bookstore, so beware when you peruse those shelves. And in the perfect world, my friend would have ended his tour in the religion section, pulled down a copy of the Buddhist scripture, the Upanishads, and read aloud this prayer. May the Lord of love protect us. May the Lord of love nourish us. May the Lord of love strengthen us. May we realize the Lord of love. May we live with love for all. May we live in peace with all. And now Mahatma Gandhi once wrote, quote, prayer is not an old woman's idle amusement. Properly understood and applied, it is the most potent instrument of action. And so with this prayer so fresh in our sanctuary, and with love your enemies swirling around the world for millennia, and with the practical reality of recent federal actions imprinting a dirty boot sole print on our religious values. Rather than tolerance, we may want to explore, quote unquote, loving intolerance. What would loving intolerance look like? Are we willing to withstand poison, to indulge, to endure hardship, to allow unreasonable ideas and ugly politics that do actual harm? Now, the values of this religion inspire that our shoulders be pressed against that long arc of history to help bend it toward justice, and it ain't arcing by itself. So I suggest that we consider being as lovingly intolerant as Mahatma Gandhi, as lovingly intolerant as Martin Luther King Jr., as Henry David Thoreau, as Terry Tempest Williams, and Dr. Seuss, especially in light of the intolerable racism of his early works and some of his books. Because I think, like the former anti-Semite that we heard from earlier, Dr. Seuss grew as a human being. He grew beyond his early and harmful work and gave the world the great gifts of the Zacks, the Lorax, Horton, and the Sneetches. Each of these texts actively help make the world a better place, and we need all the help we can get where we can get it. So during this time of political upheaval and of open attacks on DEI and the open attacks of the values of this religion, I encourage us all to be as lovingly intolerant as Ruby Bridges, that amazing 6-year-old black girl who broke the color line within the New Orleans school system, to be as lovingly intolerant as that little skinny girl, to walk steady and brave through the angry, hateful, unreasonable, intolerant mob, to keep the public schools opened for all the public, to keep reason and learning and curiosity alive and thriving, and to be able to and listen to the teachers, one of whom turned the world on its head with a revolutionary idea that is easy to remember and hard to deliver on. Love your enemies. Amen. Our closing hymn this morning is number 189, Light of Ages and of Nations. Your Spirit. guys stand up. Okay, great. Do you sit down or stand up? I don't. You sit down. I'm supposed to go like this. All right. But if I went like this again, would you stand up again? If I went down like this? This side up, this side down. All right, that's great. Our closing words this morning, a beautiful little poem by Antonio Machado. Beyond living and dreaming, what matters most is waking up. And we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. If someone just wants to jump up and volunteer, that'd be great. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These let us carry in our hearts until we're together again. And please join us after the service for coffee and treats, and we will enjoy a postlude.